Hi, and welcome to Bath's Teams Conversations. This will involve me and a couple of ambassadors discussing various topics around university, such as what is university, looking at applying and choosing a university, as well as talking about what life is like at the University of Bath. In this video, we'll be talking about personal statements. This will include the type of content that you might want to put inside your personal statement, what sort of activities to talk about, as well as how to structure your personal statement and how to actually go about writing it. We hope you find this video useful. I'm Callie Rice, and I'm the Student Recruitment Assistant here at the University of Bath, but I myself was a student for 4 years at Bath as well, so I've been through the process as well, but I wrote my personal statement back in about 2015, so quite a while ago, and I studied biology as my undergraduate degree. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Mackyla. I study social sciences here at the university. I'm in my third year and currently on placement.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm a third year chemical engineering student.
Hi, I'm Georgie. I study modern languages with European studies, and I'm on my third year, my year abroad.
How did you sort of structure your personal statement? Did you have a particular structure in mind, or did you just kind of slap loads of things on paper and just kind of go with it? Or how did you sort of, go about ordering your personal statement?
When I wrote my personal statement, it was quite easy for me just because I knew exactly, obviously, what I was applying for. So I knew the structure that I wanted to go in. So I had the academic side of things, I had work experience, and then extracurricular activities. So I separated it in those three categories. So obviously I started with the academic side. I did start with a cliche quote, unfortunately, but that's because I studied philosophy, so I felt it was okay and acceptable. But yeah, probably don't do the cliche stuff if that was one tip. So yeah, I started with the academic side. Just said what I was interested in and how my studies related to the degree that I wanted to study. And I moved on to work experience. So I have been working since I was 15. So I basically just linked every single job that I've had to the social sciences, because obviously I work with people. I had people-facing jobs. So I worked in like a supermarket, a fast food restaurant, and then a pub. So I just related that to social sciences. And then I moved on to extracurricular activities. I sing, and I had a few other hobbies, and then I linked that to social sciences as well. But obviously you don't have to link everything to social sciences. So if you have like a general thing that you're quite proud of, definitely mention that as well.
I think mine was quite similar. I went to like loads of different workshops at universities for, open days, and read a bit about it online. I was a bit confused, but I think in school we kind of had like a workshop on how to do it, and it was this like introduction, and then it was like, why do you want to do this, and then examples of like how you've showed your interest in it. So like work experience, like I did some like competitions, I read some like books, I went to some events, and I wrote about specific examples. So the thing I like took away most from doing a personal statement was that they told me to write like specific examples of like what it is and how it relates to your degree, like you said. But it was hard because I didn't really know what chemical engineering was, so it's hard to find like examples of how it would fit, and things like that. That's generally how I did it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think definitely making sure everything's really relevant. I think that was, especially because it's quite short, I think it's really like, so you don't have much space. So kind of, I think also making sure, everything you do write, kind of not only just writing kind of a list of what you've done, it's like, why is that relevant, or what did that show you, or why does that mean that you would be really good at studying this degree, or why does that mean that you have a quality that you think would make you really good at doing this kind of job. Or I think that it's maybe doing research is really important. So like looking at the degree and what you'll be required to do, and also the university, are they looking for a specific candidate? Like, what is it that the university kind of what advice do they give on personal statements? I know that Bath have a page that applicants can look at in terms of their admissions have kind of set out stuff that they would be looking for. So I think that's really helpful to look at that, and maybe if you go to open days, speak to the admissions as well, because they're going to be the ones reading your personal statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like agree with that. I went to like open days and they said like exactly what you said about like writing specifically what you're interested in and how like you've done that, or you're curious to like learn more about it. I think they just wanted to know that you actually read about it and you weren't just like applying a subject that you didn't know about. So.
Yeah, and that you're not even making it up. I just like that I'm interested in this, and like I read this book, and so I'd want to know more.
But also, even if you did like read this book, if your subject does have an interview, make sure like you read the book and you look at your personality. Yeah. I think I had one interview, and it wasn't for Bath because my course doesn't really interview, but I was so nervous. I read my personal statement about like 7 times. I was like, I have to make sure I know like everything in and out. But also, I would say, like, going back to the writing, I think I wrote like a couple of drafts and I gave it to like people to look at. But I would also say, obviously everyone has their own like writing style and opinions when it comes to personal statements, and you kind of have to prioritize who you give it to. So for example, I gave it to like a careers advisor, and their specialties in writing personal statements, so I'd take a lot of their advice. But if I'd give it to some like friends or family friends that aren't sure about university, sometimes it can be a bit conflicting. So I think trying to balance that was quite hard as well sometimes.
I think for me it really helped reading it out loud to your family, just to make sure that it like makes sense, that it flows, that you're getting all of your points across clearly. So that was something that was important for me, and obviously again showing it to your careers advisor, and just taking all the help that is available. So yeah.
I guess also maybe that as much as talking about academic side and about your work experience, I think that universities also, they do want to see a little bit about like your personality, or kind of all-rounder, and like it's also think that extracurricular I think is also quite important. So kind of not just the fact that I'm really, really passionate about this particular degree, like that you're involved with other stuff, and that's also links to why you kind of be suited to university life, and that you'd enjoy that style of learning and being in that kind of environment.
Yeah, there's definitely some good tips there. So things like making several drafts, because nobody's going to have it perfect the first time, that's for sure. I know mine was a bit of a mess the first time I made it. I just kind of slapped everything onto a piece of paper, and it really wasn't a personal statement at all. It was just kind of a list of things that I'd done and like how it related to the course, what skills I'd gained, that kind of thing. Another tip there is to show people, maybe read it out loud. Have other people look at it. It definitely, like, it could be teachers, it could just be your family, because at the end of the day, these universities, it's going to be a really important thing for them. So if you've got like little grammatical mistakes, or it just doesn't sound very well, it's very clunky, it's just not going to look very good on your behalf. So if you can get other people to look at it, even if it's not someone who's academic in that area, it's still better to have people read over it than to not have anyone look over it at all. And don't feel like that's a really embarrassing thing to do, because everybody does it and everybody writes a personal statement. Even if you haven't written a personal statement, you've probably written like a CV or a cover letter or something. So there's no need to like feel so cringe about it or anything. Do you guys have like any other tips that you share? Maybe tips, things you would recommend, or things to avoid potentially?
And maybe avoiding cliches, and I guess because you want to make your personal statement really is personal, so you want it to show a bit about you. And I guess if you're using a cliche, that's not very specific to you, and like why you want to show like the admissions why it is that you would like use yourself, and like kind of a bit unique, you want it to stand out, not just kind of what everybody would write.
What would you class as cliche?
I don't know, like maybe something like, I've wanted to do this degree ever since I was, a child. Because like kind of, I don't know if that, I mean, it might be true. If it's true, maybe do use it. But I think maybe showing the actual true journey and like what has led you to your decision as to why this is the right degree choice for you.
Yeah, we've seen some statistics, and there's like the most commonly used like first sentences, and they're usually something like, since I was a child, I've wanted to do this, or I've always wanted to study this. So those are actually, yeah, very cliche, and there's like thousands of students that write those kind of things every year, and it's not very helpful when your admissions tutor's just reading a personal statement and it starts with that line again. It's sort of it's not a great way to start, because it's kind of like oh god, another one of these, instead of something that's sort of, oh, this is interesting, I want to read more about this. So if you can, I guess, avoid that kind of thing, that's a good one. Do any other cliches people might think about?
Probably don't repeat yourself. So although you might have like a huge achievement, just you only need to mention it once, because obviously it's a short piece of writing, so you need to include everything. So make sure you only mention the big achievements once, and then move on to everything else.
Yeah, I guess again with repetition as well. In your UCAS application, you already write what subjects you're studying. And some people write, oh, well, I'm studying chemistry, maths, and English. You don't need to write that, because they can already see that. And like you said, it's limited on space, so don't repeat yourself, both in the personal statement and things that might be elsewhere. And I've told a few people, like, if there's something you've done at school that a teacher can write about in the reference, it might be better to get them to write it rather than have it in yours and use it more space if they can write something for you. And again, if they're already writing that, don't repeat it in your personal statement, because they can already see that elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think being really specific in what you're interested in. If it's, for example, your course and you have like an optional module, say that you're interested in this optional module, or like something that you want to do in the future, like a job or an area. I think it just shows like potential in like students. So just be specific and just, yeah, authentic, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe also consider the tone and like how it reads. So for example, if you have a structure but you kind of want it to flow as well and read as like a nice piece of writing, so kind of having that transition from paragraph to paragraph, I think, is quite important, so that it kind of it flows as like a nice, not like it's not disjointed, that, you know, someone reading it would kind of, oh, this all links together and kind of in a complete kind of sense.
Definitely. I think that goes back to sort of Mackyla's point about reading it out loud. So it is nice to have that flow, and a good way to sort of test that is to just read it out loud, or have someone read it out maybe to you as well. Because you might read it in one way, but somebody who doesn't know much about you might read it in a completely different way. So yeah, I guess those 2 points can sort of link together quite nicely. So for universities, this is probably the most important thing about your application, because you'll be up against students where they're like similar grades to you, they'll be studying similar subjects. It's the personal statement that really is going to make you stand out from similar students, especially when you're in maybe like a near miss application as well, where you're missing out on a grade, and there's maybe like 5 spaces left, but there's 20 students that have missed out by 1 grade. Who are they going to give that space to, that sort of thing? So if this is so important, what would you say are the main messages you put across in your personal statements?
Just be yourself.
Yeah, I guess you are trying to say why you would be really good for this degree. So I guess bring that across, and bring the fact that you really want this, and that you are really passionate about the subject, but also that, you know, that you've got qualities that would mean that you would really enjoy it, and that you'd be, you know, you feel you would be good at it. I think it's really important to get that across.
Yeah, and I would say, like, agree with everything that's been said as well. It's like trying to, I guess, make it a bit balanced. But I think for my personal application, I think I did it more academic. But I think it's important, like you said, to talk about all your extracurriculars as well, because you can see like how you're fit in general to university, and whatever you're doing in your extracurricular probably has some transferable skills that are always useful. So yeah, like an equal, I guess, distribution of what you're doing, and like examples, I would say loads of examples of what you do, and like how, if someone does a summer school, definitely include that, or read a book, anything that you think would relate to your course is important.
Well, thank you very much for listening to our Teams Bath conversation. Today we talked about personal statements, a little bit about what we wrote in ours, and the sort of structure and some tips that we have. Of course, we're not all experts here, we're all just sort of talking about our own personal experiences, but hopefully you found that useful. Otherwise, thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.